Hello and welcome to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Nina Adio, a social media marketing expert specific to the wedding industry. On this show, I discuss tips to help you DIY your social media, as well as getting the confidence and income to outsource it. Thank you for allowing this episode to come through on your Bluetooth, your car radio, wherever it may be you're listening from today. Now, let's take your wedding business to the next level. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. If this is your first time here, hello, my name is Nina Adio, and I specialize in social media marketing specifically for wedding professionals. And for this week's topic, we are taking a break from some of my solo episodes, and I have a very special guest for you with a very special purpose of what she's going to be talking about. If you've looked at the title, you already may have an idea. But today we are chatting with Frances Sherlock. Frances is a Central Florida-based content creator and social media strategist with 6 years of experience in digital marketing and social media management, in government contracting, health and wellness, travel and tourism, and my favorite, themed entertainment industries. She's currently is a full-time freelancer, living the dream, offering marketing and social media services to businesses, as well as influencer marketing services to those aspiring to be micro influencers or content creators. In her free time, Frances works on content creation for her personal brand, DreamfindingwithFrances, where she shares lifestyle and Disney content with her audience on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And that is how we got to this episode today. I met Frances through being part of kind of our online Disney community, and I saw how she would teach other aspiring Disney influencers how to leverage that, how to become influencers, even without having huge followings established. And I really wanted her to chat with my audience here about how you guys can leverage influencers, whether using influencers to promote your brand or to become influencers yourselves. I think for our hair and makeup people, you are trusted authorities when it comes to products. So that, for one, is a more obvious approach that we could take. But Frances and I go into a lot of things, and she shares so much value and so many gems here. So I'm going to get right to it. And then Frances also has links in the show notes of where you can work with her if you want to leverage your audience, your influencer status, and to work with her towards becoming an influencer of your own. So let's get right to it, guys. Frances Sherlock. Frances, I'm so excited to be talking to you. Hello.
Hi there. I'm excited too. I've never been on a podcast. This is also new.
Oh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it, especially because Frances and I, we met through both doing YouTube of our Disney collection, specifically pins. Some of you are used to seeing my mouse ears in the background. That's what I'm looking at with Frances right now, and it's very comforting. How many
Yeah,
pairs have you counted?
I think between 35 and 40, I want to say. And I'm really good with the ears about if I get a new pair, I'd like Marie Kondo it. So if I haven't worn them in a while, I'll flip it out because I only have like this limited space. I need to do that with the pins. I feel like I got a new Figment pin. This random pin in another collection has to go away.
So let me tell you what's so great about Francis is obviously I've mentioned we both have Disney collecting in common, specifically Disney pins. So when you meet somebody who has something like that in common with you, it's amazing. But then we both have a passion for social media and marketing. And what I
hmm
noticed about Frances, and on her channel, I'll have it linked below, Dream Finding with Frances, she would do social media courses essentially for other Disney YouTubers about
hmm
how they can leverage their role as an influencer, regardless of their audience size, would you say?
Yeah, so I don't know how I ended up getting in this space, but a couple years ago I started getting like campaigns, like gifted campaigns and all this type of stuff, and they started popping up on my social media. So then people just started like asking questions. Like my inbox was getting full or my texts were getting full. So I was like, "Hey, we're going to do an entire time where you can just ask questions. I'll set aside an hour. I'm going live on YouTube Wednesday night at 7, and this is the topic. It's going to be influencer networks, and you can ask all your questions about influencer networks." And then like another one was like media kits, because I get so many questions about media kits. It's probably the question that I get the most, because I don't feel like that's a common thing. Everyone knows what an influencer is and like what a creator is, but no one knows what like a media kit is and why you have one and what the reason is and stuff like that. So like that was another big one that I did too, just because it was easier than answering, 20 different messages. It was like, hey, this hour, all the questions will pop up and I'll answer them live. And if you have follow-up questions, just shoot me the text then.
Yeah, and you did those live, but they're still up there on the
Yeah,
channel,
they're
so
they're still
people
on there.
can
I didn't pull them
watch.
down. They're still on like
Great.
the live tab. So they're probably towards the bottom because my live pin sales, I've been doing
Yes.
a lot more of those. So those have taken up more. So you just might have to scroll a little bit, but they're back there from I think the beginning of this year and like the end of last year.
I love it. It's like welcoming the I Do Wedding Marketing listeners to our world where they're going to see pin sales and marketing stuff. So a lot of wedding professionals maybe don't realize that influencer marketing can be a part of their world. So can you kind of just
Mhm.
give us pretend we know nothing? What is influencer marketing?
So essentially, influencer marketing is when a content creator or an influencer partners with a brand on a collaboration. And it can either be like a gifted brand where you're just going to highlight a specific product, or maybe a hotel or a meal. Or it can also be paid as well, depending on how big the creator is, how much they advocate for themselves, and how much budget the brand has. A lot of smaller brands may only be able to gift like the meal as their thing versus a meal and $100 or a meal and $200, and it just depends on the brand as well as the creator of what they're comfortable with and what they're willing to accept. I know like if you have millions of followers, you're probably not going to accept a free meal unless it's at like a Michelin star restaurant, but like a smaller creator would be really gracious to have like a free meal. And the reason that they do this is because if you see Kim Kardashian advertise something, for example, you're going to be like, well, she was paid, $50 million for this ad or something. Or if you see a Super Bowl ad, you know how expensive they are. Versus, for the most part, there's trust in creators. There are some creators who just do this and are like, I want the free product and I don't care if it turns you green. But for the most part, there is like the trust that the creator genuinely likes this product, or they went to the show and they loved it, or they ate this meal and they thought it was great and that's why they're sharing it with you. So for that factor of trust, more brands turn to these like influencers for this reason. And then a little bit that has started to change is the rise of like UGC and user generated content. So it's not necessarily Frances as the influencer, it's Frances knows how to take photos and videos, but she gives it to the brand, and the brand uses as a user generated content, but Frances doesn't necessarily have to put it on her feed and say anything about it. She just might take a photo of her nails or a purse or a shirt or something, and it might just be my torso, but that's user generated content versus my entire body as being Frances the influencer, if that makes sense. UGC has probably become slightly more popular in the past couple years. There's a lot more people that prefer to do that because like their face and their personal brand isn't attached to it as much as it would be if you were like advertising yourself as an influencer.
So let's kind of pivot for a second, if you don't mind, to
Sure.
do a little more on UGC. So let's say
Mm-hmm.
a wedding venue, they
Mm-hmm.
have in-house events. So let's say
Yes.
they're having a themed night,
Mm-hmm.
Would UGC be that they're kind of just reposting content there that people have shared, or are they hiring an influencer to take content while there that they're then providing to them to use?
So it's either way. It just depends on how the brand works. So, for example, I tagged the ring that I got my husband on an Instagram post, and they messaged me and they're like, "We want to use this as UGC." So I wasn't necessarily paid for it, but
Mhm.
they're asking my permission to use the content that I took and put it on their feed as like someone that actually used this product and speaking of it. But you can also, if that venue is having a theme tonight, they can go one of two ways. They can invite that influencer as an influencer and like talk about the theme tonight. And it's like, hey guys, I'm at this wedding venue. Here's what they're doing, blah, 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 and talk through it. Or they can hire, I don't want to call them an influencer because I
Hmm.
feel like it's changing to be a different job. They can hire a UGC creator, which is an actual thing now. It's
Yeah.
weird to say. They can hire someone who just specifically does UGC, and they might not be comfortable in front of the camera, but great. They're like a great videographer, a great photographer. So they're taking these really, really nice videos or photos of the venue. And they'll just pay for that. They'll be like, hey, for $500, can you give me like 3 really good videos and 10 really good photos or whatever it is? And they'll pay for like the UGC content. And then the wedding venue will just post it on there without like the influencer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. How would a wedding professional take advantage of this option of, UGC, user generated content? Let's say they were attending a bridal show, and let's say even it's a photo booth company because they're giving
Mm-hmm.
out material, if
Yeah.
people are coming to use the photo booth. So how could they leverage that even further than just having the photo booth there and hoping people post and share about it?
Um, well, it's definitely having those conversations with people that are coming up. I feel like a lot of my friends in the space down here just have those like natural conversations with people when we're at events and we're just like, they're like, oh, like, I'm an influencer, I'm a content creator, and I do this. And it's like, oh, would you be interested in doing that type of stuff? But it's research in like the area. So a lot of these companies and these brands have like influencer marketing departments. Like ColourPop is a good example. Like you
Yeah.
can see people, having those PR kits and whatnot. They're doing research of, people that are tagging them, is that person, just, Joe Schmo on the street, or, are they building a brand for themselves? And just, doing that research of, I don't want to, are there bridal creators? I feel like they popped up on my
So it's a
feed on
new
my feed.
thing of the
Yeah,
wedding
like
content creators. And even though
yeah.
they serve the bride, I think vendors could probably reach out to them because it's networking for the wedding content creator anyway.
Hmm.
So they'll benefit from coming if, let's say, you say, "Hey, I'll buy your ticket," or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah, so it's leveraging that. So, for example, my husband and I on Tuesday night went to an event in Orlando, and I was invited as like a media person. And it was just, they found my page because I was posting Orlando content, and it was very like, hey, we have this pirate dinner show where we went to the Halloween first.
that looks so
Um,
fun.
it was like, it was like, hey, we're doing the Halloween media night. Would you be interested? And I'm like, vampires? Like, yes, Halloween. Like, let's go. It's this
Oh my,
cute,
I
like
love
little
that term.
cheesy,
I'm
yeah.
writing it
It's this
down. I need to
it's
tell my
this cute little
sister about
cheesy
it.
like dinner show in Orlando, but they found me because I'm doing content in the Orlando space. So it's your area, but also your niche. So if you're like florals and whatnot, if there is a very specific, wedding bridal content creator that just talks about bouquets and stuff, it's finding that person and seeing if you can work with them, or maybe brides in your area that are at your venue or using your service, and seeing if you can piggyback off of them if they have a following and they're open with that.
Yeah, I think especially on Instagram, the collaborator post feature
Mm-hmm.
really has been great for that. What
Mm-hmm.
kinds of businesses, and if you can relate it to weddings, great, but just want to
Mm-hmm.
hear in general, do you feel could benefit or do benefit most from influencer marketing?
I feel like anyone can do it. It's just you have to like the whole thing of marketing is you have to spin it the correct way or
Yeah.
find the way to spin it. So of course it's really easy if you think of like any of the wedding shoe brands that like pop up. Like that's really easy. Like you tag your wedding shoes or you unbox it and you do all these really cute things. Like that's really easy. But you can also highlight like wedding venues and be like, oh, here's us walking into our venue for the first time. Here's us going into it, all that type of stuff. So it's just finding what you think is going to work well for your audience and what's going to connect with them without feeling like too salesy. I feel like sometimes you can pop up on TikTok and like Instagram and it's like, hi, my husband sent me a meme the other day from like the Truman Show of like her pitching the hot chocolate and how unnatural it was. So it's making sure
Yes,
that
yes, that's a
every
good example. Or
yeah, that
in Wayne's
everything
World where they
feels
do the product placement.
yeah, where it feels more natural, like the example where I tagged where I got my husband's ring for. Like I didn't ask for that. I just naturally tagged that. So just making sure that it doesn't come off as salesy, but you're still finding those opportunities to potentially work with people and sell your brand and sell your services.
So with that being said, how, if a wedding professional is looking to take advantage of influencer marketing, where do you recommend they start or how can they do this?
First, it's kind of what understanding like what they want from it. So like what their goals are. Is their goal like leads? Is their goal just getting their name out there? All that type of stuff and having that understanding. And then I think it's definitely some research. So looking up, bride content creators, looking up your location, seeing what happens, seeing what pops up, and then kind of seeing if you can work with those people. And then if you have a bigger budget or you're finding that not works for you, I don't know it from a brand perspective, but there are so many of these websites that will pair content creators and influencers with brands. And it's a really simple
Yes.
process where the brand will be like, we're looking for, women from 25 to 40 with 5,000 followers or more on TikTok in the beauty space. This is the campaign that we're running, send us a pitch. And then they'll go through however many pitches that they get on that website and, pick the people. I don't know from a band perspective if that's easy, if you pay for it, if that's more of a headache. You can even just, I've gotten so many DMs on Instagram where it's just like, hey, I have X, Y, and Z, or hey, I'm running this event on Friday. Can you show up? It's as simple as that, too. So it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be super crazy or a super heavy lift. It's just making sure that you know what your priorities are and what you want from the collaboration, what your budget is before going into it, because I feel like it could potentially be a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think you mentioned some great things that it doesn't have to be super complicated.
Mhm.
So I'd say on the easiest spectrum, and would be every now and then I'll do a call out to past brides saying, would you like your photos,
Mhm.
past brides and grooms, would you like your photos on our feed? Send them to us and we'll feature you.
Mhm.
That's easy. And you're not really looking for influencers, you're just looking
Mhm.
for past couples and they
Yep.
will show up. And then the next level would be it is easier if you have an event, if you're a venue or you're attending one, decide how many tickets you want to give out to the community. And then what I would say is what you really made me think of when you were talking about connecting brands with influencers is let's say you're a makeup artist. It doesn't have to be someone engaged. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be a bride. It just has to be somebody who's, I call it a makeup face, looks great in makeup, connecting with someone, giving them a makeover, and they're posting about it. It doesn't have to be a bride.
Yeah, and you never know if that person is potentially a bride to be. So I started working, we haven't brought this up yet. I
Mhm.
do social media for a destination wedding travel agency. So they just handle like the room blocks and that aspect of the destination weddings. They're not in there planning it at any of these hotels, but they help with like flights and rooms and all that type of stuff. So I started working with them in April of 2022 and I got engaged in July of 2022 and got married in October of 23. So when I started with them, I wasn't a bride at all, but they kind of took advantage of my services. Like when I was a bride, it was like, what are you Googling? Like what Facebook groups are you in? Can we like do this type of stuff? Like what are you looking on Pinterest? What blogs can we write? So it was like they very much utilized my brain as I was going through that process of actually planning my own wedding. It wasn't a destination wedding in the sense that you think of it, like we weren't on a tropical island.
But you were
But
at the best destination as far as we're concerned.
yeah, I did get married at Disney, so a wonderful location. But like, you're like doing your invitations is very similar, regardless of if you're a destination wedding or not. Like the concerns of your wedding dress change a little bit because I wasn't on a beach, but it's similar concerns and all that type of stuff. So they were very much taking advantage of that. So if you are like a makeup artist, going back to that, you never know if that person might get engaged a year later and they go back to you and they're like, oh my God, like I love the time that you gave me that free makeover or whatever. I want to use your services and I'm going to scream from that like hilltops that you're amazing and all that type of stuff. So you never want to like burn those bridges. Those relationships can definitely come back and be beneficial to both parties.
Terrific. And congratulations on
Thank you.
your wedding and being a newlywed. So I'll skip ahead. I was going to save some of your wedding talk for the end, but what
Sure.
about marketing in the wedding industry did you
Mhm.
learn through planning a wedding and being a bride?
So the algorithms definitely work for you, especially on like TikTok, where the ad dollars aren't as saturated as a Facebook or Instagram yet. So it very much was when you started watching that first wedding video, all the rest of them started coming through, and my For You page was definitely, tricks for walking down the aisle, hairstyle trends, how you do this, how you do that. And it was so saturated, but it meant that like my algorithm was talking to me because it knew that I was wedding planning and in this process. So it's making those things work for you, but also I found a couple brands that I reached out to in the partnerships. I didn't necessarily get the partnerships, but it was like targeted ads for weddings that started to pop up that I was like, oh, this is actually really, really cool. Like, I'd love to use this. One of them was like a phone recording for your guest book instead of having a
Yes.
signed guest
Those are
book. Like,
so
that one
cool.
kept popping up. So I reached out to them. They never responded, which, it happens. Like, they probably get hundreds, if not thousands, of those emails every single day. I don't expect to get answered every time. Or like name changing services, like those kept popping up, and I reached out to a couple, ended up deciding to keep my own name, but I would have had a partnership with them because I happened to see the sponsored ad and decided to reach out to them. So taking advantage of, like, if you build it, they will come. So like that type of stuff of those algorithms and stuff are working so much in your favor that you might find, like, end up on someone's For You page that'll reach out or be like, oh, I didn't think that I needed this very specific service, or holy crap, look at this venue, like I'd love that, all that type of stuff.
That's, and Sherlock is a cool name, so
I Yes.
good.
I stand by my decision to keep it.
Yeah. And I what you said about the algorithm working is so
Mhm,
important, and about really what I took away from it, and this is what I tell my wedding vendors a lot, is that our goal is to let people know you exist. And that's
mhm,
what these ads and the SEO and the targeting helps to do, is that not
mhm,
every bride knows. To us in the industry, we take for granted that we know everything that's going on, but people are getting married on average once, maybe twice,
mhm,
They don't know that now audio guest books exist.
mhm.
You may think everybody knows that your venue exists or that you're the top photographer, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to come off like salesy. So if you're a photographer, for example, I find that like informational posts are like way better. So you want that person to potentially follow you because you're just this breath of information for that year or that 18 months or that 2 years. And they might not use your services, but they might go, oh, I heard that from that person, or they might comment on something and be like, I never thought of that. And even that comment's going to help you. Like, they might not pay for the photography services, but that comment could pop up on someone else's feed, or they could see that a
Mm.
friend commented. And it's just that small little thing that could get you a lead, not necessarily from that person that commented, but maybe the friend that saw it, or someone else that liked the comment, or that comment pushed something up in the algorithm. So you don't want to necessarily think of it as, I did this TikTok video and I only got $100 of revenue. Like, there's those like soft or like qualitative things that happen that are also beneficial to your brand for like a brand awareness perspective and all that type of stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be like money driven.
Yeah, it's a nurture sequence because
Mm-hmm.
ideally, as a wedding professional, I want people to know you exist before they're engaged, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I may start the sequence with, if I'm a photographer, what are the best things to wear to your engagement photos?
Mm-hmm.
Starting with engagement, right? A photo booth company saying how you can use a photo booth at your engagement party to turn them into save the dates, or,
Mm-hmm.
other things. So
Yeah.
leading people through the process, like you mentioned. And if you're commenting on it and people are sharing it, you may not get the direct lead you're thinking of, but it still gets that return on investment in a
Mm-hmm.
maybe more organic way. So Now, some wedding professionals want to be the online influencer,
Mm-hmm.
especially as we get wedding planners. They work with a lot of brands, they can do
Mm-hmm.
a lot of affiliate marketing. So, how would you recommend a wedding professional become become the influencer?
I think it definitely starts in that like building your audience and like growing a little bit because you could have 100 followers and you can try your darndest. I don't know what brand, what brands are looking for, or like what their expectations are when they say yes or no to an influencer. You can always shoot your shot and see what happens, but it's definitely building that audience, building that rapport. So, for example, my audience knows that like I'm very raw and very truthful, and I talk about Disney pins and I call people out about stuff, but also like I'll go to the parks in a Her Universe dress, but then the next thing I'll be like, yeah, I wore that for a photo, guys. Now I'm in a t-shirt and jeans. Like I will be very transparent about that. It's like building that rapport. So if you're the wedding professional and you're the wedding planner, maybe it's, a lot of informational videos, or maybe it's some, you know, edutainment type videos like talking about mother-in-laws or all those stereotypes or anything. It's building that rapport, and once you have that like rapport and that trust relationship with your audience, you don't necessarily have to have millions of followers. Like maybe you're sitting at 5,000. Then you start thinking, okay, what are my next steps? I always recommend the media kit, which we talked about a little bit in the beginning, which is essentially just your resume as an influencer or content creator. It's a little bit of a bio, it's some examples of your work, it's some targeted stats about your audience. If 50% of them are females this age, et cetera, et cetera, your engagement rate, your platforms, stuff like that. And it's essentially your resume for it. So you're sending that to brands and whatnot, and it kind of is a snapshot of you as a creator, so they don't have to look at all of your platforms, but it highlights in a nice snapshot. So I always say the media kit is probably, it doesn't have to be perfect. Mine's always a work in progress, but it's a start that you have one. And then you kind of you can go one of two routes. You can go on these like influencer networks like we've talked about. There's so many now. Aspire, Azia, like there are so many. You can Google it and just see what pops up, and you can start applying for campaigns for things that you think you'll be good at. In a wedding professional, I wouldn't do like pets or babies or anything, but maybe makeup or hair products or shoes or clothes, like something more in that vein, and start applying for those and seeing what happens. You're probably going to start off more in the gifted space where they'll be like, hey, we'll give you, ColourPop will give you a PR box of makeup in exchange for whatever the deliverables are, an Instagram story, an Instagram post, etc. Once you build up that experience and a higher engagement rate or a larger audience, then we can start talking about like compensation. I'm always a big advocate of being compensated for these types of things because it is work. Like you want to make sure that your video of the ColourPop box is pretty and not ugly. You want to make sure the photos are clear and whatnot. So it does take some effort, and you should be compensated for that. If you decide not to go down like those influencer networks, you can always just do what every business development person does and just start cold messaging or cold emailing people. So you can be like, oh, I really want to work with that audiobook, like the phone thing. So I'm going to go on their website and see if they have an email address for like media or marketing or press. Like usually it's one of those things. It's like press at blah blah blah, media at blah blah blah, marketing at blah blah blah. It's usually that. Sometimes it'll be a person. If they don't, then you can send it to the generic like support at or hi at or whatever it is, and see if they'll circle you back to the marketing department you want to. And in those emails or those like you can do the same thing on Instagram messages. You just want to kind of be concise, but also kind of be direct. It's like, hi, I really like your brand. I am blah, blah, blah. And I'm interested in a collaboration. I really like your brand because of this. This is what I'm thinking about for the collaboration, something along those lines, and include your media kit. So I wouldn't just be like, hey, I want free stuff. It'll be like, hey, I really like your product. I've been using it, or I saw it and I'd really like to test it out. In exchange for testing it out, I will provide 3 Instagram stories, or I'll provide a 30-second TikTok. So you want to make sure you're not just like asking for stuff, that you're like, hey, in exchange for this, I will provide this for you. So it shows like a symbiotic relationship. Um, I find that the influencer networks are great for like gifted campaigns and whatnot. So if you don't mind just getting the free makeup and you're okay with that being the payment, it's really good for that. If you want paid campaigns, it's a little bit harder. I've gotten some paid campaigns from some of those. I got more from the cold emailing and the cold messaging, But if you've ever been in business development, you know, like 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 sticks. So you might just spend an entire day just like 30, 40 emails of like, hi. But biggest thing is, as much as you want to copy and paste, like, do you make it unique to the brand? So if it's like a makeup brand, be like, I really like your makeup. I've been wearing it, or I really like how it's gluten-free or cruelty-free, or make sure there's something specific, and then also specific as to like what you can provide them. Like, I love your brand because I'm like this and I like that and stuff. As it feels like once you're sitting in that, like it's you just want to get in that mindset of just copying and pasting and pushing them out to see if something sticks, but you do want to make sure that they're getting so many of these emails that you stick out.
Yes,
Is
leave
the best
like
thing to
in
say.
your template, at least for my templates, because I'm all about cold emailing. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I leave blanks for where I'm inserting, and
Mm-hmm.
especially like you mentioned, it's about, the value. What value are you giving? So if you say, I love that your makeup is long lasting, which is exactly what brides need on a
Mm-hmm.
wedding day, then that's going to help really focus not just on your numbers for followers, but your audience, right? It's more
Mm-hmm.
likely to hopefully get that turnover because brides need a long lasting makeup look.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring this up because you made me think of this when my sister was getting married. She saw a YouTube makeup tutorial from a makeup artist she trusted about how to do your own wedding day makeup and bought every single thing the woman used,
Mm-hmm.
And so, because the woman was very specific towards what a bride needs for her wedding and why, you want
Mm-hmm.
this to last, this doesn't smear, etc. You also made me think of some other things. I took some notes because there was so much value in this. I'm really excited. And while you were talking about how to really sell yourself as an influencer, what wedding pros may not realize is that you're already doing this with other vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Wedding professionals, a planner will recommend this photographer, and maybe they have their own agreements of referral fees or
Mm-hmm.
commissions, or maybe they just do it, referral for referral. But take that same mindset and apply it to this, and apply it to something that's more broad and can be really not just location based then when you're starting to promote makeup brands or products. So I just wanted wedding vendors to remember, you already know how to do this. You're just applying it
In a
differently.
different way. Yeah.
And I also want to say, Francis, I think you need an ebook on this and talking about the media kit, maybe a media kit template, and it can be people's like starter kits.
I offer building a media kit, and I find that, not to do the secret sauce, Canva does have templates if you look it up,
Mhm.
but it's just knowing what should go in there. So I feel like I could do the template and like have one, but not everyone knows it should be your brand colors if you have a brand, or your brand font, because that like pulls through everything. It's knowing which statistics are more relevant than others and what people are looking for. So I think it's more beneficial if I provide the service of doing the media kit for you, instead of just saying, here's a $10 template, go do it. I feel like, especially if you're starting out, you need a little bit of the hand holding, and
Yes.
then once you know like what's supposed to be in there, then you just change it out. So when your engagement rate changes, or your followers change, or maybe you have a new brand example, like I worked with ColourPop, so I want to add them because that's really, really
Mhm.
cool. You just flip it out when you know what to put in there.
If you guys don't know, ColourPop is a makeup line, but for us, it's such a casual. They do Disney palettes, so
Yeah.
that's one thing I
Well,
love. But they're
I
also
like that.
cruelty free, right?
Yeah, they're cruelty free. They're pretty affordable in like the makeup space. They're
Mhm.
not like an elf or like a Wet and Wild, but they're not up there in the high end. And I
Yeah.
think their products are pretty good. Like, I use their eyeshadow. Their eyeshadow lasts. Their eyeliner is the only eyeliner that I use now because I like the felt tip pen.
Mhm.
Like, for a $9 eyeliner, it lasts me 2 or 3 months and it doesn't smudge, and I like it. So they're like a good product. So that's why I like
Yeah, if you
them.
don't take away all of the business gems Francis gave you, take away ColourPop because they're fantastic. So
Maybe
we've
if I say them enough, they'll finally send me a PR kit. I've been
yeah.
trying to get on that list for a while.
So if somebody wanted to work with you for the media kit, because I think that's a great idea, especially if you
Mhm.
haven't done this yet, how can they work with you?
I will send you the link to include in like your show notes and whatnot. I have it through my Upwork profile right now just because they can do all of like the payment processing
Oh,
and they'll give me like
fantastic.
a
Yeah.
timeline and a way to do the deliverables. I am in the process of setting up all of those business things, but I'm just kind of using what I have right now. So since I'm on Upwork and have everything established there, it's a little bit easier. But I have it as like a project you can buy from me.
Great. And then if they need to find you on social media, it's Dream Finding with Frances,
Yep.
Frances. And
Hmm.
they can just DM you there. Does that work
Yeah.
too if they have questions? And you guys really should check her out on YouTube, get into our world. And she will even find my channel. So I have some rapid fire questions for you that I'd like to end with. Are you
Perfect.
ready?
Sure.
The best weddings have.
I think like memorable moments, like something that everyone takes away, like remembering, it's that one like aha moment. So ours was we got a major domo. I don't know if you know what that is in the
Oh,
Disney space. So a major domo essentially is Cinderella's carriageman, and he's dressed in like the full powdered wig and whatnot. And my husband was initially sold on him because he announces everyone. So like
yeah.
when he comes to the
Oh,
reception, it's
oh.
like now welcoming the McLaughlins and like all this. So they announced my parents, they announced my bridal party. But we found out during our planning phase that they can do a prank on the best man.
Oh my gosh.
I really don't want to ruin this because like if anyone attends a Disney wedding and sees it, they're gonna ruin it. But like
Yeah.
I so the best man usually holds the rings and whatnot during the
Mm.
ceremony. So our best man did not have them. So our officiant was like, okay, it's now time for the rings, and like turns to our best man, and our best man's like, what? I don't have the rings. What do you mean? And then
Oh
like
my
turns to my maid of honor who isn't on the joke, and the maid of honor is like, I don't have the ring. So like everyone starts free. It's like it passed in about 60 seconds to 90 seconds, but it was enough where people were panicking. Like my husband's aunt was gonna like come up with like a family ring, like I have a
Oh
ring,
my
like it's fine.
God.
And then they play a dream is your wish your heart makes, and then like he walks down with like a little glass slipper and presents the ring. So that was
Oh,
like the second
that's
thing that like
beautiful.
sold my husband was he could um prank his best man, but also have like this memorable moment of this guy in a powdered wig walking down with a glass slipper to present us our rings. So it doesn't have to be that to that extent, but maybe it's like you had a mac and cheese bar and that was the memorable moment, or maybe it's like a photo booth and that was the memorable moment, or it's everyone got up and did the wobble, like just that
Yes,
one thing that
yes.
everyone remembers.
And I do want to say that on your Instagram, you have been posting some good
Mhm.
wedding content. So people are going to want
Mhm.
to go over there. So when I am in the zone, I am listening to.
One of two things. It's either musicals or to go back on the Disney thing, there's this online radio called Sorcerer Radio that just plays the parks background music. So you'll just be listening to like the background music of Epcot or something. And it feels like home. Like I'm just sitting here and I'm like,
Yes.
oh yeah, I'm in Epcot right now.
Now, is it current only, or do they do some like 90s theme parks too?
So it's all of it. So you can go back and like they'll do different hours. So like there might be like a resorts hour or it might be like nighttime show hour. Like they run like a radio station and they run commercials and stuff, but you just go on there and you look at their schedule. So like 1 to 2 might be Epcot hour and it can be anything from, when it opened in the 80s to current stuff.
Oh my gosh. So now you've gone influencer marketing, color pop, and sorcerer radio.
I
Ours
hope they
too.
still exist. I haven't played them in a while because I've just been doing Spotify a lot. But like a year ago, they were just like always on my computer. I haven't gone
Yeah,
back to them in a while. Let me Google and make sure that they still
right?
exist.
Because that's I may have to
Oh,
it'll be
yep,
a
it
nice
still
break
comes up.
from
Yeah. srsounds.com still
oh,
exists.
good. It'll be a nice break from my true crime. On a Monday morning I am drinking.
A venti strawberry acai refresher from Starbucks.
Nice. Do you get those just weekly or every day or
When I was in the office every day, now that I'm freelancing, I'm trying to curve back a little
yeah,
bit, but probably 5 to 6 days a
good for
week.
you. Or we'll have to figure out an at-home dupe for you.
If someone could find that, it'd be great.
Yeah. My favorite TV show or movie wedding is.
If we're talking like inspirational and like if I like had a wedding that wasn't at Disney, it was Bella and Edwards from Twilight, just like the dress and the aesthetic and how beautiful it was in like Forks. If we're talking about like the one that's most memorable to me because it's growing up in one of my favorite movies ever, it's the one for My Big Fat Greek Wedding, like the first one.
Those are both really good. And because we're coming off of Thanksgiving, I am most grateful for.
Just this entire year. So 2023, I got married at Disney World, which little old Frances was so happy about, even though she didn't know that she wanted a Disney wedding. Like she's so happy about it. And then we ended up going on a Mediterranean cruise for our honeymoon, which I cannot recommend more. That was a beautiful honeymoon and
Um,
so much fun.
Well, that's great. And I know your next year is going to be just as fantastic. I know it's hard to top a wedding, but I think as you continue working with brands and influencers, you're just going to have an incredible 2024. And I think everyone listening will too. Reach out to Frances if you need help with the media kits or anything that's discussed. Frances, any last thoughts before we part?
No, thank you so much for doing this. This was fun. I've never been
Yeah.
on a podcast, so this was cool.
Yes. Oh, good. So I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you on a lot of more podcasts to come. So I promised you guys we were going to learn a lot, and we did. I just wanted to pop up here in the closing segment to remind you that you can follow Frances online at Dream Finding with Frances, and I have the link to work with her in the show notes below. But you also can just send me a message on I Do Wedding Marketing if that's easier for you, and I will connect you with Frances. I can't wait to see your influencer status start to grow and shine. Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed hearing Frances, be sure to follow the I Do Wedding Marketing podcast for more episodes and interviews like this one. Until then, guys, I will see you next time.